Hello, this is Jeff Gamble, Indianapolis, Indiana, and this is the MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show. Today we'll actually be going over law number 10, the law of connection. We're bringing on a friend here real quick. We are getting rolling. How is everybody? Boom, there he is. What's happening, Chris? Good morning, good morning. Good afternoon, depending on what side of the country you're on, where you're coming in from. We're going to be going over the law of connection. For those of you who are following along with us, we're going through the 21 laws of leadership. This is law number 10 in the series, so we actually repeat this once a month, so that way we can grab the lessons that John teaches and bring those together. Here is Bess. She's going to help us get started. Hello, hello. She's connecting. There she is.
Hi, everyone. Got my mascot Charlie here again. He's our lunchtime leadership show, MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show mascot. Welcome. I am Bess McCarty of the MLM Millionaire Club and Shrink of MLM. This is Jeffrey David Gamble of my leadership network, also certified John Maxwell trainer. And you already met Charlie here. This is a very special one today, as Jeff mentioned, the law of connection. That's why I brought Charlie, because he's so good at that. So all three of us here love to partner to bring you this generic training, the MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show, every noon here Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. If you're watching the replay, we'd love if you type in replay so that we can thank you. Also love to hear where you're from. And let you know our purpose is to help people grow, to educate and equip and empower entrepreneurs and create independent servant leaders. The law of connection today: leaders touch a heart before they ask for a hand. And where does leadership fit in? I just wanted to share something that I heard Eric Warrior say on a podcast I was listening to last night, because this is the MLM Leadership Show, right? And so where does leadership fit in with the whole picture? Eric says there's really three things that we do in network marketing. And the one is to sell valuable products and services, primarily using word-of-mouth advertising. Number two, we grow a network of other people doing the same thing, where we can leverage. That's where the leverage and the value and the wealth also comes in. But number three, we use our leadership to improve productivity of the network that we build. So that is why we're doing these shows. This is where the leadership part comes in. Of course, John Maxwell has been called the #1 leader, expert, and teacher and trainer in the world, and he's going to be speaking in December at Eric Worre's GoPro event in Las Vegas. So if that gives you a little bit of an overview, a little bit of a framework as to where leadership fits in, why we're doing these classes, and how this can build your business, then I'm glad for that. So the law of connection, number 10 law: leaders touch a heart before they ask for a hand. And we'll hear a little bit from Charlie about that, but love to hear what you have to share, Jeff.
Okay, so leaders attract people like themselves. We learned that yesterday in the law of magnetism. But the law of connection, it says the heart comes first, and you must be connected on an emotional level to kind of break through, to be able to, bring people along with you, to be able to keep people, to be able to have people, not just get in, but stay in, because that's part of the idea behind direct sales. You're going to have to do something to get in front of people, but to have them around long term, this lesson is a must. So learning the law of connection, it says connect with yourself first. Kevin Hall, author of Aspire, said there's 4 belief statements that you're going to have to figure out. You're going to have to internalize to be able to, get this first. First of all, am I worthy? Am I worthy of, the success? Am I worthy of having a team? Am I worthy of recruiting these people? This is one of the things that I see when I first try to recruit people or try to bring somebody onto a team, or I'm having conversations with people about business. This is one of the things that I've seen inside of people that they start struggling with, and they're not going to come right out and say, usually, am I worthy? They're going to say, yeah, but I kind of grew up here, and, I haven't had much success, and I've never done this. And, they're creating all these stories, all these reasons. And in reality, what they're really saying at a deeper level is I don't know if I'm worthy to be followed. I don't know if I'm worthy to have these people around. I don't know if I'm worthy to have these people on my team. The second one is, am I capable? You'll hear a lot of times people say, well, I'm just not as good at this as some people. I'm busy. I've got all this stuff going on in my life. My life's a mess. You don't understand, you don't understand my situation. Again, they're kind of saying, I don't know if I'm capable of figuring this out. I don't know if I'm worthy of doing this. I have so much other stuff going on. I don't know if I have the time to, figure this all out and learn it. Am I deserving? That's a deeper level. Am I deserving is, more about your philosophy of life and more about your philosophy of how you deal with people and what you think is okay and not okay. And a lot of times we've built these reasons in our head because of past experiences, because of family members, because of people that were around. We have these stories and these situations that we'll remember that kind of sneak in as we're trying to do this and as we're trying to recruit people. Am I deserving of what's going on? That's a really deep level conversation to have. Once you break through worthiness, once you break through capability, am I deserving of it? And until you feel that you're deserving of it, I can tell you this, it's going to be really hard for you not only to get there, but to keep it. And last, do you trust yourself? It says, I trust myself. Do you trust yourself being in that situation? Because some people, I've done this where I freak myself out. Oh my gosh, I've gotten to this level. What happens when it all falls apart? I'm almost telling myself that it's going to fall apart. I'm self-sabotaging. And a lot of this comes in with self-sabotaging, and it really has to do with belief. I love, Holton Buggs actually spoke at one of Eric Worre's events. He's a giant network marketer. And he said from stage, he goes, I would believe much bigger, much faster. And I think what he's talking about is, I would believe much bigger, much faster is, work on yourself to believe what you can accomplish. Because it really has a lot to do with what you feel you can accomplish, not what the business feels. I like how Grant Cardone put it. He said, success is already there. Money's already there. The people are already there. There's already 7 billion people on the planet. There's already trillions of dollars going around the earth. It's not that they're making more money just for you. It's the money already exists. The marketplace already exists. The people who are looking to do something already exist. Everything already exists. The only thing that doesn't exist is your belief that you can do it. And I think, that really rung true with this lesson. So living the law of connection, we've got a couple of these. It says we have to touch a heart before we ask for a hand. So it means it's good to get to know somebody. It's good to understand who they are. It's good to understand what they want. It's good to understand their personality before you say, hey, let's go do this. A lot of times we'll recruit somebody. We won't really know who they are. We won't know what their background is. We don't know kind of how they tick. We don't know their personality. We don't know their sensory acuity of how they view things. And all of a sudden we're trying to get them to do stuff. It's better to find out who they are and what they want first. That's why I've always used a profile sheet to figure out who people are, ask them questions, find out, where they grew up, what school they went to, who they grew up around, what their family life's like, what their background's like, who they're closest to. As you go through and ask these questions, these are all things that pop up that you can sit down and have you can have conversations on. And what you're doing is you're really connecting with a person at a much different level. You're finding out really who they are and what they're about to be able to understand how to help them move to the next level. The first heart we have to touch is our own. So you kind of have to get okay with yourself. This is why personal development is so important. Personal development usually in a system is at the forefront of what you do. I came from a system that was 5 things. Number 1 is listen to an audio every day. Number 2 was read from a positive book every day. Number 3 was associate with, like-minded, positive people, associate with the people who are building this. Number 4 is where you get into buying your own product, using your own product, and sharing your own product. And number 5 was actually doing the work and actually sharing it with other people. I think it's very interesting that the first 3 steps in those 5 steps have all to do with working on you. And the last, and even the fourth one has to do with working on you, has to do with working on the belief of using the product. And only on the fifth stage do you go out and tell anybody else about it. What do most people do? They go out and tell people about it and tell people about it and tell people about it without working on themselves, without growing themselves, without figuring out things that they need to figure out. And they're wondering why they're taking on so much resistance. When you work on yourself, it makes it so much easier to do this. 3, we cannot lead others to places we've never gone ourselves. John talks about, you want to be a travel guide, not a travel agent. A travel guide will actually go on the trip with you, take you. They're like, hey, I've been here, I've done this, I've been to that mountain, I've been across that lake, I've been on the side of this, hill. Those are the people who can really help you at a very different level than, hey, I've read about or I've talked to somebody. You want to be the travel guide, not the travel agent. You want to be going with them. You want to be helping them, not just pointing them in the right direction. 4, know your giftedness, know your purpose. It says know your DNA. Who are you? What are you? What are you here to help people do? What are you here to accomplish? What you'll find is 80% of the people will come along because you have a dream and you know where you're going. Only about 20% of the people will figure out, and most of them won't figure it out right away. Only about 20% of the people will figure out their own dream to figure out where they're going and run along with you or even in front of you. Some people will figure this out and be better at it than you. It says lift your giftedness, basically list your strengths, list your disappointments and setbacks, and find commonality in the list. What have you been good at? What have people told you you're good at? Oh my gosh. What if people told you, oh my gosh, you're so good with people. Oh my gosh, you're so good at, fixing things up, and you're so good at organizing, and whatever that thing is, and if your life's a mess, you're so good at messing it up. Yeah, everybody's good at something, as my friend said. They're like, you just have to find the positive. It's good to be around somebody positive when you make that list. Number 5, know your enthusiasm, know your passion. Some people, we say, are you excited about this? And they're like, yes. And you're like, you should notify your face. Because we wouldn't know if you were excited or not. Some people just walk around like they look like they got hit in the face with a bat all the time. They're just like stone cold. I'm like, is there something wrong? They're like, no, I look like this all the time. I'm like, wow. Do you own a mirror? You don't understand how you're affecting people on the other side. What makes you laugh? What makes you sing? What makes you cry? What are the things that get you emotional? Is really good to know, and then using those things to help you propel your business. Number 6, live through your giftedness and enthusiasm. Plan the executed combination of purpose and passion. When you're doing what you should be doing, and you're doing it with the right motive, it becomes actually easy to do, and it doesn't seem like work anymore. So that's why I had to change from I'm going out to sell, I'm going out to close, I'm going out to recruit, to I'm going out to educate, I'm going out to share, I'm going out to tell people about how this works. Because I got excited about just telling people how it works. I got excited about telling people about the industry. I got excited about telling people how business works as opposed to just working a job. When I got excited about telling people how business works rather than just working a job, this became so much easier because then I wasn't trying to necessarily sell them the product or the service. I was like, maybe I can open this person's eyes. Maybe they won't do this. Maybe they'll go start their own car shop. Maybe they'll go start maybe they'll finally write their book. Maybe they'll start, their own business. Maybe they'll start painting. Maybe they'll start crocheting. Maybe they'll start, building houses, whatever they're into. I just want to be able to show them the cash flow quadrant. I want to be able to show them what happens to people who don't engage in anything other than work. I want to show people how the system eats people alive and spits people out on the other side with nothing. Not that that's a good thing. I just want to show them what the alternative is. So with that, that's the first part of, living the law of connection. Before we go into leading others to law of connection, I'm going to turn this over to Bess and get her thoughts.
Thank you, Jeff. That's all real powerful stuff. And I imagine you'd have to have a pretty good connection with the person before you tell them to look in a mirror and all that. But that's a great humor. That sometimes that's what we're thinking, even if we might not say it out loud. you know, and it's a good lesson for us all to notify our faces if we want to express how good we feel inside. Let that come out. Don't need to let that hide. So I want to say hi to Chris Gonzalez, who said he loves Grant Cardone, especially the 10X book. And to Adrian, Fred, Denise, Joyce, Becky, Vicky, Donald, Nancy, and Doc, and Francisco. So glad. And Deborah, Doc, yeah. Thank you all for joining us here today. If you're getting value, we'd love if you hit like, share, comment. Let us know your questions, because in a bit we'll take questions and also comments and insights that you might have that we can share with the group. So we'd love to hear all this. Law of connection. Connect with people emotionally before asking them to move to action. So we have to connect before we move people to action. Now, Charlie's still here in my lap. Can you imagine him obeying me if I never gave him love? Can you imagine a dog doing that? Obeying, come here or sit or stay or whatever he needs to do, or put up with any of my commands, no matter how logical they are, keeping him, away from a truck or street or something like that, no matter how right they might be. Can you imagine a dog obeying an owner before the owner gives them love and connects with them and meets their needs? It just isn't going to happen. And so the bigger the challenge before the group, the stronger the connection needed. And the stronger the connection, the easier it is to enlist support or what you want to do, or get everybody to the convention if that's your goal. Let's everybody reach this level of volume this month. Let's everybody get to the company convention and bring 3 people with us. Can you imagine that happening without any other connection or support or relationship that you develop with the people? It just won't take. It doesn't make sense. One reason that I brought Charlie here is because he's very good at connecting. He will just be with a person, and maybe you don't have to do anything brilliant to just be with a person. Just sit with them and care. There was a story of a mother of a little toddler, and one day she was looking for her toddler, and she looked out the window and she saw him sitting on the lap of an elderly neighbor, a fellow who lived next door, whose wife had just passed away. And when the little fellow came back home, he said, maybe he was at preschool or something like that, but she said, "What were you doing?" And she said, the little boy said, I was helping him, I think, not be lonely or something like that, or helping him feel better. And all the boy did was just sit on his lap. And that's the reason we love our pets, right? They connect just by being. So they don't get in our space, and neither do they neglect us. There is that fine point in between where you are with people and you care and you listen. It's probably the biggest thing to do, is listen and relate to them as an individual. There was a young lady who said, "My grandma makes each of us feel special. She has like 13 grandkids or something like that, and I'm just one of 13. But somehow, I don't know how she does it, somehow she makes each one of us feel like we're the only one." Probably because of that quality attention when she's with them, and she listens to them, probably knows their wishes, hopes, and dreams. And so that's another key in talking with your team, is know their history, know their goals, or like Jeff has said, know their dreams. And when you're speaking with a group of people, speak to one person at a time. Calm yourself as a speaker, but also focus just on one person at a time rather than the group, and that will make it also individual. So back to Jeff, and I'll share more later.
Okay, so Becky says Judy is with her today. Hello, Judy. Thanks for joining us. Leading others to the law of connection. Communicate with openness and sincerity. Says choose candor and caring as tools to keep you balanced. Authenticity is a trait people are looking for. So when you're out talking with people, it's okay. And there's there's a point to being able to share with people and being authentic, and there's a point to being negative and just telling people you're garbage all the time. And there's a fine line in between. Just like there's a fine line in between, you know, connection of, you know, eye contact and the piercing. And there's a difference between, you know, eye contact and the piercing stare of a psychopath. Psychopaths don't blink. You know, they're staring you down. They're hunting you down. You want to be able to make that connection without coming across too much. You want to be authentic without being, you know, completely negative. You know, people are like, well, I'm just being authentic. I'm like, no, actually, you're being, you know, you're ruining a situation is what you're doing, but you fail to realize to read between the lines. You have to read between the lines on some of these. Know your audience. Know your audience. Know who you're talking to. I see this happen a lot with, I think because on Facebook, we're so used to just being able to share whatever. You kind of see people, you know, I read this the other day. It says, you know, people walk outside and they see the sun because the sun is so bright, we squint. And sometimes we'll meet somebody and they're so stupid or so dumb, we squint as well. You know, so it's the opposite of being bright. They're a little dark. So when you're out working with people, you have to be able to recognize the ability to connect with your audience and know who your audience is. You know, and I just saw this the other day that, you know, somebody comes in and they were on a political rampage about whatever thing or subject matter. And it was really funny because the other two people were definitely violently opposed to, and what I mean by violently opposed is there's certain people that you can start a conversation with that aren't going to have a conversation back with you. They're literally going to get up and start a fight. They're not interested in you talking. They're interested in you not breathing. It just so happened that that was these two people. And I was just waiting. It was like a time bomb. And I just sat back. And it was funny because somebody's like, wow, you're really quiet. And I was like, yeah, I'm just waiting to see what happens. You know, I'm actually contemplating, should I tape what's about to go down? Because if it does, it's probably going to go viral on Facebook. And I'll probably be a witness, you know, called into court. And they just kind of looked at me. And it was funny. They eventually saw the look because of my reaction. They saw the look on the other two people's faces and they changed the subject. And I was like, that was probably a good move for you, your life expectancy. So make sure you know who you're talking to, who you're around. There are certain people out there, even in an audience of, you know, being in, you know, you could be anywhere, but you know, imagine just being in a restaurant and I've seen people start conversations and food starts flying. I mean, people are just so unhinged today. You want to be conscious of who your audience is and who's around you. Go where they are. Go where they are really means like start where they're at. If they're brand new and they've never done anything like this, you have to kind of slow down and be like, so you've never done anything like this before? They're like, no. I'm like, you work in a factory, right? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah. They're like, but I'm in management. I'm like, okay, well, you know, name off all the people you manage. Well, there's just me there. Okay, so you're the night manager. Yeah. So if you're the night manager and there's nobody there, then are you managing the equipment? Because the equipment usually doesn't talk back to you. So now we're in a business where we're actually talking to people. It's going to be different. So you have to kind of go to where they're at and understand, you know, who they are, how they operate, what they're used to. Focus on them, not you. You know, tell me your experiences. Tell me your background. Tell me what you've been through. New people, what I've seen, new people a lot of times will want to tell them, well, when I got in, you know, and my brother said this, and my mom said this, and my dad said this, and, you know, and this is what's going to happen. Well, that might have happened for you, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to happen for them. But you're projecting what's about to happen to them. And sometimes I've watched people, you know, new people build fear into other people that doesn't even exist, doesn't need to be there. Believe in them. Believe in them. You're going to be able to accomplish this. You're going to be able to figure this out. It's going to happen for you. Josh is with us. What's happening? And then offer a direction of hope. One of the biggest things you can talk about is, you know, this is why testimonials are so important, is let me tell you about some of the people that I've worked with. Let me tell you about some of the people who have gotten in, who have made this happen. Now, if you don't necessarily have those stories on your team, you can use the stories from the business, particularly from your own company. You know, let me tell you about the people who have come over to our system. Let me tell you about, you know, my friend Jeff, who, you know, not me, Jeff, but another friend of mine, Jeff, who got into the business 10 years ago as a college student. He was just looking to figure out, you know, what to do. And once he saw it and he was able to make $1,100 in his first week, He's like, wow, I just made more than my parents do, you know, after 30 years of working or whatever. And now all of a sudden I have this money coming in from this direct sales thing that I'm doing part-time. Maybe school isn't the best way. And he's been able to build a life and a family. You know, I have another friend that got into direct sales. He was in sales. He sold cars, he sold furniture, he had sold all kinds of things. And he was basically working from open to close. Open to close in the furniture business is 7 days a week. He wasn't seeing his family. He didn't like his life. He wasn't able to see his kids. He wasn't able to watch a football game. He wasn't able to do anything. And this guy is like a diehard Cowboys fan. So, you know, he needs to see those games. So eventually he sees direct sales and he sees a way out. And in his first 45 days, he was able to climb this chart, get all the way to this certain level where he had thousands of dollars pouring in. And he was actually able to tell his boss after 45 days, hey, this isn't for me anymore. So these are the kind of the stories. This is a way to be able to connect with people and offer direction and hope to people. Hey, I know people who are in the same place as you, who are in that same situation. Never bash anyone because you know you got all the power. Yeah. So this is just, you know, some of the ways to be able to help people, you know, move on, is be able to share with them stories of success, stories of people who made it. Now, here's the thing. If you don't have that story, no problem. Make sure you use third party, call upline, and have somebody else tell the story. In fact, telling the story from somebody from their perspective is even better. So like Jeff and the other guy that I just told you about, I would be able to pick up the phone and physically call them and be like, hey, can you share really quick, you know, your background and your story? I just was talking with this person. They're new. They haven't seen any success in their business. Can you tell them how fast it happened for you, you know, in your situation? It's funny. Sometimes when you talk to these different people, you can use other people's success. They don't necessarily have to be on your team. They don't necessarily have to be directly connected to you. But that's why I build friendships with so many different people. That's why you want to connect with so many different people, because you have that leverage. You know, that's inside of direct sales. Let's talk about outside of direct sales. I was just following up because this guy actually instant messaged me while I was here and just called. And I was just saying, hey, thanks. I figured out the car situation. But this was a person that I was able to connect with through two other people. Funny enough, the people who initially met that connected us are no longer in the picture, but I stayed connected with them. Why? Things in common, figured out, I used some of these techniques, and now I have friends in different industries that anytime I need to figure something out, I'm able to reach out, find this person, connect with this person, have them help not just me out, but help other people out as well. So with that, what I want to do is I'm going to turn this back over to Bess. If you can go through that. I know that Nancy just wrote something, and so did Tina.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nancy, for clarifying. She was saying she loves this material, but she disagrees with talking to only one person in a group. I meant one person at a time. Sorry. Yeah, thanks for the clarification. Yeah, you can look at one person, you know, for a sentence, another person for a phrase of sentence, another person, until you cover everybody in the room, especially if they ask a question. Yeah, so that I'm not ignoring anyone. Yes, absolutely. And talking. Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. And that's what we appreciate here is your comments, because we want this to be interactive, not just us, right? Y'all have so much wisdom and information too. Nancy, did I cover that completely as you wish? If not, then add more there of explaining anything else that you meant. And who else has a question or a comment to share, an insight that we can also share with the group here? Of course, we'll keep the discussion going online even after this. I'd also like to say hi, besides say hi to Tina and Lisa, who are here. So as a body-mind therapist, been dubbed the shrink of MLM, I'd like to speak for a minute about deserving. Like Jeff said, before you can connect with other people, you have to connect with yourself. And I've sort of now equating, after studying this chapter in the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell, which we are working from here. This is the number 10, the law of connection. And I've sort of equated now connection with love. It doesn't mean to connect like to tell somebody off or to connect with anger. I think it always means connect with love. That he says connect with people. Of course, that means with love. And we need to start with love for ourselves. because it's said in most traditions that I know, in spiritual traditions, that we can only love another person to the degree that we love ourselves. And like Jeff was saying, well, how deserving do you believe you are at your core to be successful, to be a leader, to be able to guide people? Lots of times when we're told as a kid, we grew up with perhaps, you can't do that, you don't deserve that, you'll never be able to do that, that's too big of a dream, don't disappoint yourself. And all of those negatives that we start to feel a little smaller and a little smaller when those come in. And so this is easy to do as a child because that person's bigger than you and they're like God, you know, your parent is like God and they're telling you stuff about yourself like this. And so you just believe it because you don't have a censor, an intellectual censor in place. So this just goes in to the little child. So be careful how you talk to other people because their inner child is still in there somewhere, and how you talk to your own children, but most of all, how you talk to yourself, because your inner child is still in there. I sort of equate my inner child with my heart, and she's still very much present and carries some of the programming from the past that I've had to redo. That's why I've specialized in inner child work and helping people to do that for the last 30 years, is to rewrite those programs. Because the good news about this, I mean, the bad news is that we got programmed as children, but the good news is that we didn't come in with those programs. Those are added on. So because of that, they can be rewritten. So anything that's in there can be rewritten. Anything negative is not really you, because I'll tell you that in your core, you are good and you are deserving and you are powerful and limitless. That's who you are at your core. This other stuff has been added on, but don't believe it. If it's negative, don't believe it, because it is not true. So these things can be thrown out and rewritten. However, as Jeff said, there's going to be challenges at every step of the way. And there's a saying that says, heaven must be re-won every day. So we don't always arrive. We have to work on ourselves, just like we have to lift weights every day, exercise every day, eat every day, sleep every day, and all that. We also need to feed ourselves and have love for ourselves and self-esteem in some way, valuing ourselves. So here's a little exercise that I like to share with network marketers. And that is, before you lead a call, or make a prospecting call, or do any leadership thing, you can look in the mirror and say, I am valuable and lovable no matter what, whether that person joins me in my business, becomes a customer or not. I am valuable and lovable regardless of anyone else's reactions. And there will be new challenges at every stage of growth and leadership. So that's part of the wonderful journey, because every time we face one, we feel better, we move ahead. And if you get stuck, that's where I can help as a body-mind therapist. And Jeff is also a wonderful coach, and we can help you. Go over to Jeff.
So I was just thinking about this. If you want to connect to more people, a couple things you can do. What do people like being around? You know, that's one of the questions that you can start asking yourself. What do people like being around? Tony Robbins says, whatever you hold in your mind on a consistent basis is exactly what you'll experience in your life. So if you hold on to negativity, if you hold on to the bad things that have happened to you, what you're going to do is you're going to experience that. And then what you're experiencing is going to be projected out through, you know, your tone of voice, through how you react to people, through, you know, what you think, you know, other people are coming at you. It's funny that, you know, I'll have a conversation with somebody and there's another person there, and a person will say, well, I think they were saying this. And I was like, well, what makes you think that? Because I didn't hear that at all. And hearing how they've experienced other things because of what they're holding on to internally is basically what happened. So if you want to connect with more people, watch this. I've known that people like connecting with people who are happy. I've known that they like connecting with people who are funny. I've known people who, you know, connect with people because they're able to share something positive. Now think about this. You don't have to be the most outgoing person to share something positive. You don't have to be the most outgoing person to be happy. You don't have to be the most, it's like, find something that's funny. Now there's a fine line of what you think is funny, what everybody else thinks is funny. There's a fine line between, you know, humor can be very dark, and some people like the dark side of things because they've been through bad stuff. So you kind of have to, that's an interesting one to use. But you will find that people are able to connect, especially when talking with people. If you can make them laugh in the first 15 seconds, What I found is your breakthrough is so much different. So when you're first meeting somebody, you know, it's great if you don't have that humor already perfectly built in. One of the things to be able to connect with is just to be able to find commonalities, find things that are in common, find out who people are, what they're about, what they like. And what I did is I created this profile a while ago, and I'm just going to read through it real quick because we do have about 5 minutes left before, you know, we kind of try to keep this to 30 to 45 minutes. So this is when I was recruiting somebody. So it has sponsor, phone number, email, Facebook, address, just so I know who somebody is so I can follow back up with them. But then it has the first section is family. And it says, where were you born? Where did you grow up? What school did you go to? Like, where did you go to school at? You know, what school activities did you do? You know, were you involved in art, band? You know, were you involved in musicals? Were you involved in singing? What did you do? You know, were you involved in sports? College, university, technical school, trade school? Did you do any other kind of education after school? You know, what are you about? Do you come from a big family or small family? You know, who were your guardians? Was it, you know, which family member? What was the profession? I always like to hear that. You know, somebody else start talking to somebody, I'll be like, well, what does your family do? You know, and they're like, huh? I'm like, your mom and dad. I can't tell you the number of people who do not know what their own parents do. I mean, here's the thing. And I only say that because I had no idea what my dad did. I remember kind of like them asking me in school, you know, well, what does your dad do? And I'm like, I don't know. I was just told to leave him alone. I was just told he was busy. I knew he worked on art, but I literally had no idea what his profession was. And I'm not talking like I was 5. I'm talking like I was a teenager by this point. And I was like, I really don't know. I don't have conversations with him at all. I just don't know. So, and I found that to be true with a lot of people. People are like, well, I really don't know what my parents do. Oh, okay. It kind of gives you good insight to what's going on at home. Family, guardians, professions. Who were you closest to growing up? Isn't that interesting? Well, I've got 5 brothers and sisters. Okay, who were you closest to growing up? Well, really, it was the youngest or the oldest. I mean, people have. I was like, well, why do you think that is? I don't know. We see everything on the same level. We got in trouble the same way. I mean, there's just different reasons. But what you'll pick up is typically it's personality-wise. Well, I relate to them because our personalities are the same. Oh, okay. Occupation. What was the first job you ever held? Which job have you liked the best that you've done? Which job did you dislike the most and why? What current job do you have? What duties, you know, what do you do all day? What are your likes? What are your dislikes about what you do right now? You talk about having motivation to be able to build a business. Didn't you tell me that that person at work harasses you every day? So you'd rather do that for the next 40 years than talk to somebody? Oh, I never looked at it like that. Okay, well, that's why I asked you these questions to begin with. We go to recreation. What do you like to do when you're not at work? What would you like to do if money was no longer an object? That's a big one because a lot of people like, well, I sit home and I rest because I'm so tired. Well, if you didn't have to go to work, what would you be doing? If all the money was there, what would you be doing? How often do you get to do that? You know, some people are like, oh my gosh, I really love travel. Well, how often do you travel? Never. Where was the last place you went? Well, in 1990, well, if you're using 1990 as a reference for the last time you traveled, that was almost 20 years ago. What would you do if time and money were no issue? How would you spend your time? Who would you spend it with? Who would you leave at home? Who would you lock in a closet? I'm just kidding. Then the last is these 5 questions that I'll ask. What are your 3 greatest strengths? What do you think your strengths are? What are 3 things you need to improve on? What motivates you? Where do you want to be in 5 years? What is the most important thing in your life right now? That's a really good one because then you'll kind of understand where they're sitting compared to everything else that's spinning around in their life. You know, what's concerning you right now? You know, is your concern finances because you're looking to the future? Is your concern health because you're dealing with a health issue right now? Is your concern family because there's something going on at home and you're freaking out? What is going on right now? These are the questions. So this is a profile. This is actually a 1-page sheet that I take on people that I recruit, people that I sponsor. I'll actually go through this with them, find out who they are, what they're about, and I keep this with me just as a reference point, because if I ever need to promote something and I need people to make a decision and make the right decision for themselves, for their business, for their family, I now have 10, 20 things maybe that are listed here as leverage to be able to get them to question what they told me. I'm not trying to pressure them. They told me they want out of their job. They told me they don't like this person at work. They told me that their income isn't where it needs to be. They told me that their strength is figuring out new things. They told me that, you know, they're struggling with making the right decision. Now I have leverage. I have big leverage. And here's the thing. It's not because I'm a great salesperson. It's because I remember what they told me. And I'm not doing it based on what I want. I'm doing it based on what they told me they wanted. And it's, watch this, it's much stronger. It's much stronger when it comes from them. Didn't you tell me this? I mean, I've had people get mad, hang up the phone. I hate you. And then they call me back and they're like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. You know that thing you were telling me about? I thought about that and you're right. See, I've gotten so used to this and I figured this out that I'm able to actually do this. And I've used this even on family members, which is, you know, here's the thing. It's not to create conflict, but it's just to get people to think. I turned it around. One time my mom and I were arguing over something and I turned it around and I used this on her. She did. She hung up on me. She was upset and she called me back like a day later. She's like, you know, I thought about what you said and you know what? You're absolutely right. I just never had it put in front of me that way. And I was like, well, the point wasn't to make you mad. The point was to get you to look at it. So that was all I was trying to do. She's like, well, I didn't like how it was done, but the result is I did think about it. And, you know, that's actually very true. You're right. I'm going to, you know, how would you, now all of a sudden she was asking for advice. How would you suggest dealing with that situation? Because she was dealing with a certain individual that she had a hard time with because of her connection with that person. So this is stuff, guys, you can use this inside of business, but it becomes very powerful outside of business. These lessons, these rules apply everywhere. They apply at work. They apply at home. They apply in interpersonal relationships. They apply in romantic relationships. They apply across the board. So they're really good lessons to learn if you want to be in control of what you're doing, not controlling the other person, but if you want to be in control of what you're doing and keeping control of a situation rather than letting circumstances, rather than letting your emotions, rather than letting everything else rule what you're doing. So with that, I'm going to turn this back over to Bess with some closing thoughts, and we're going to wrap this up.
Thank you, Jeff. I was just thinking, wow, your mom could have taken that same technique to use with the person that she was having trouble with, because I think that to know somebody is to love them. And when you really get to know what makes that person tick that she's having trouble with, the same as you did with her, you know, that could be a technique for any relationship. So I love those questions. I love your questions to ask about people, especially people that we're leading, and we have permission to go deep like that and find out. That can also be a way to get to know somebody really, really quick, like in 1 or 2 or 5 minutes. You know, I feel like I can get to know somebody real quick just by caring and asking questions. Here's another quick tip. Hold your doggy or your pet in your lap as you make your calls, as you motivate your leaders. I don't know, it really opens my heart or whatever opens your heart. Let that happen. If you are free at 3 p.m. Eastern time today, I'm going to be interviewing Jeff and presenting samples from our Quick Start Basics for Network Marketers class that we teach every Sunday night. So every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern, we're going to be delivering some samples from that wonderful, powerful class that people say is just knocks their socks off. They take notes all the time. There's people on here in that class. Love if you, are you getting benefit from that class? Love if you type in a yes from that or any other comment. So today, the topic that I'll be sharing with you and interviewing Jeff about is 5 laws of duplication, 5 things that you must know to be able to duplicate what you do with your team. This is either fertilizer for your team, or it can be a stranglehold, depending on how you use this, the 5 laws of duplication. So very important. And of course, it'll be replayed here on my Facebook page, Bess McCarty, if you cannot join us at that time. So we'd love to have you. This class, what we're doing now, of course, is the MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show. If you're not a member of that Facebook group, we'd love if you go over there and request membership, and then we can add you. And tomorrow, the topic is law number 11, the law of the inner circle. Back to Jeff.
Okay, guys, so if you want to teach this, it says when we offer sincere, genuine hope, and we're able to touch others' hearts, when we do this, that's when we're truly connected. Number one, I like people, but I just don't feel we're on the same page. If you're not on the same page, you're not on the same level, you're not able to directly connect with certain people. This is basically, you know, some of the stuff that you're going to hear, some of the stuff you can use. You know, I gave you that profile sheet. I gave you those questions to ask. Those are some of the things you can connect with somebody at a deeper level. One of the biggest things with connection is learning somebody's personality. And we don't have time to go into all the personalities right now, but just going through a class on personalities, being able to understand the personalities. That's one of the things that we're going to do at our team building event, is being able to understand the personalities. Because when you're able to understand the personalities and where somebody's coming from and what their drive is and what their dominant question they're asking or the dominant thing that they want, you're able to understand people on a very, very different level. You're able to connect with them at a different level, which means you're going to be able to get them to react. You're going to be able to, you know, figure out why they're doing what they're doing and how they're doing what they're doing. And you're going to be able to motivate and inspire at a different level. But it takes understanding those personalities. I have a few people that are, you know, competent on what's going on, but they just don't seem to, you know, be able to move forward. Again, sometimes that's connection. Every time I talk to so-and-so, I get a glazed look. Sometimes what you're doing is you're describing a vision, but it's not their motive. You know, some people's motive is very visual. It's what they're going to get. It's what they're going to gain. Some people, it's very auditory. You know, they're looking for the positive feedback. They're looking for, you know, the warm fuzzy. They don't need a physical thing. They just want to be around the excitement, around the people. And then there's the kinesthetic people that need to feel that you're actually connected. People do business with people they know, people they like, and people they trust. People they know, people they like, and people they trust. So if you're explaining something where you might know what's going on, but they don't understand exactly your motive of why you're doing it, or it just seems to be about gain and your conversation is money, 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 which happens a lot inside this industry. I was completely guilty of this because that was my main drive, was to be able to get to the money, because the money to me meant people would follow. If you had the money, then you had, you know, they say that money is the power, then people would automatically, you know, want to follow, want to listen. And what I found was the more money I was making, the less people were actually listening. Why is that? Because money wasn't the motivation of a lot of the people in the room. It was to go help other people, or it was to go inspire other people. It was a very different way to look at things. So these are things that you just want to understand. You know, people are like, oh my gosh, there's so much to understand, I can't figure it out. There's a few key things. You know, there's a few key things. 20% of this information will make 80% of the result of what you're trying to get done. You know, personalities is a class you can learn in an afternoon, but it does take a lifetime of actually physically dealing with it. And here's what you can do. You can either talk to an enormous amount of people really quickly and understand these lessons, or what you can do is go to training the rest of your life to figure it out. A combination of both is best. You know, if you're doing the trainings and you're talking to a ton of people, what happens is these lessons pop out faster. One of the reasons I was able to learn and gather this information quicker is because of the number of people that I was talking to. When you're talking to 3 to 10 people a day, every single day, 7 days a week for years on end, I was able to compress a lifetime of this information into a very short period of time. Once I did that once, I was able to understand it. I was able to grasp it. And here's the thing. I learned it before I got network marketing. I take that back. I learned it before I built network marketing. What I did is I got in network marketing, nothing happened. I then got into real estate and the mortgage business, and I learned a lot of these lessons I took from network marketing, but I applied them in the mortgage real estate business because we were running leads and because I was talking to 3 to 20 people every single day, and I was taking applications and I was pitching and I was figuring all this out and I was asking these questions. Oh, really? Well, where are you? Where'd you grow up? See, if I go through a 1003 in my head, now a 1003 is actually a mortgage application. I can still do a mortgage application without the mortgage application because I memorized it, because I did it so many times. And a lot of the information is very similar in a way, but what I did is I stopped asking it as a robot when I was taking a mortgage application. I started asking it like a networker, and what happened is the information flowed so much easier. I was able to get everything I needed but I was also able to understand the people. That way, when I ran into problems on a real estate deal or a mortgage deal, you know, I could call the person back and they were like, no problem, no problem. They were really cool about it. Or I knew how to explain it to them because they were upset. They were like, hey, this person wants to cancel their file. I called them and I was like, hey, what's going on? They're like, oh, well, the interest rate changed and, you know, I can't do this and I wanted to do that and it should have been this. I was able to have a conversation with them and I had already connected with them so they would sit and listen rather than just be furious and leave and cancel. So it helped a bunch. That's why we have this information. So I'm going to turn this back over to Bess and we're going to wrap it up.
Exactly. Those are such good stories and reminders. I just want to say hi to Chris, Julie, Laura, and Lisa. Lisa put out this the phrase cohesive, congruent, coherence. People like thinking together, village people thinking together. That was a response to, I think, one of the comments on there. So we say farewell. Love yourself. Keep your heart open. Connect with other people. It's really fun.
Awesome. And I'll see you online later today. Thanks, Bess.
Thank you.